So I remember the day that I decided to move and I was just on site, the rain's just coming down and I was just thinking, what am I doing, man? So I just called my best mate at the time, Joe. Within 2 weeks, we were in Australia.
Moving back to Liverpool, what prompted that after 9 good years in Australia?
I'd set up my own company doing form work. That was going unbelievably well. Life was just exactly where I needed it to be. Then I got the news and my mum was diagnosed with cancer. When that kind of struck with me mum, my priorities have completely changed here. From looking for, maybe a home to now looking for like an investment.
We'd picked up your property for just over 580K last year. And the latest valuations have come back at near $740,000.
Getting a buyer's agent just made sense to me. For that reason, for investment purposes, it just seemed the logical thing to do. Seeing that growth has helped me throughout this year. Obviously, leaving everything that I know, leaving a successful company, a growing business. Sometimes it's been the only positive thing happening in my life at times this last year. So it's been big beyond words, to be honest with you.
I'm here on the other side of the world, in the UK, Liverpool to be precise, catching up with one of our clients, Paddy. Now, it's a very different Property Nerds episode. I'm not here with Jack or Adrian talking all things finance and strategy. Instead, we're talking to a community that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger amongst InvestorKit clients, and that's Aussie expats. So Paddy was living in Australia for 9 years, originally from the UK, went to Australia for 9 years in the construction field, moved all over Australia, by the way, from Brisbane to Sydney, even some stints in regional Australia and Darwin. Now, during that time, Paddy built a successful career in the construction space in Australia and actually had to move back home. And so this meant living overseas again, but in the UK, investing back home in Australia, investing without being in the country, knowing everything going on in the cities that he's living in. This is something that many Aussies have to make in terms of decisions. Do I invest in Australia back home, or am I in the new country, whether it's the UK or Dubai or other parts of the world? Do I invest in that new country? Now, Paddy decided to invest in Australia, grow a portfolio there and continue growing that portfolio there. So in this particular chat, we go through that story, that journey, what made him move to Australia, back again, how his investment actually performed, and some of the challenges alongside some of the solutions to being able to invest whilst living overseas. Something that's growing massively amongst Aussies and something that I predict will continue to grow over the years ahead, especially as the growth and favorability of investing in Australia is an all-time high when it comes to property investing. So check out the chat with me and Paddy here in the studio in Liverpool, United Kingdom, as we explore the conversation with Aussies living all across the world, exploring investing back home.
Nerd alert! Property Nerds, the home for data-driven property investors, where we uncover Australia's hot and cold markets, latest headlines and trends.
Paddy, welcome to the Property Nerds show, my friend.
Thank you. Welcome to Liverpool.
Yeah, the other side of the world, right?
The other side of the world, mate.
Man, look, I actually want to take you back a bit of time now and go to when you first thought of moving to Australia. Because unlike the expat chats I'm having on the road, many of them start in Australia. They're Aussies that move abroad.
Yeah.
But you went from overseas to Australia and then back again to Liverpool. So talk to me about what started the move.
Okay, so what started the move? Just young. Used to traveling around. All my mates, like whether it's the footy, or festivals, you used to getting around in Liverpool. Everyone gets everywhere. So we were game, but mostly just bad weather, mate. So I remember the day that I decided to move. It was just raining non-stop. Like I do quite a hard job. It's mostly outside. It's form work, and in Australia it's called shutter and joinery here. So yeah, I was just outside, rain battering. And there was a lot of talk about it between our group. So there was 8 of us all together thinking about moving. 2 went, and I was just on site. The rain's just coming down, and I was just thinking, what am I doing, man? So I just called my best mate at the time, Joe, and said to him, look, I'm going. And he was like, right, I'm coming with you. So within 2 weeks, we were in Australia.
Man, that's wild. That like, just a bit of bad weather just caused all of that momentum and just packed up, lives changed.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Australia as a particular country, what made you select that? Because I know there's many countries along the way between here and Australia, and there's a lot of places with some decent weather too along the way. But what stood out for Australia?
I mean, to be honest, something just sparked the interest. I went to college with a lad from Ireland. And he mentioned it to me. He was like, oh, I've got mates in Australia and it's things like that. So I was kind of like, that kind of sparked me interest. And then the more we just spoke about it as a group of friends, the more it just become real. And that was, and you know, visas are available to us there and things like that, work and holidays. It is completely different, but you haven't got the language barrier and things like that. You've got the nice weather. So it just made sense.
Mate, if you're after hearing a mate or a bro after everything, then
Yeah,
Kiwi land and New Zealand land and Australia, that's as far as the accent differences will probably go, and a couple of different endings, right? Other than that, we're all the same. But mate, when it came to moving over to Australia, and then how long were you there before you decided to even come back here to Liverpool?
I was there 9 years.
Wow, 9 years.
Yeah.
You're almost as Aussie as I am.
Exactly.
See?
Yeah, quite a stretch, mate. Quite a stretch.
Well, when you were there in Australia, so which cities were you parked in? Which cities did you explore?
Do you know what? I travelled everywhere. So I landed in Brisbane first.
Yeah.
Was there for a couple of weeks. Then decided to go to Melbourne from a friend's recommendation. We went there and from there just travelled around. We were 3 months there. Went up to Darwin. From Darwin, lived in a few regional places as well. The Snowies. And stuff like that. So
you're a proper explorer, man.
Yeah. Well, just work takes you everywhere.
Yeah.
We ended up in Sydney then and just settled in Sydney. That was where like our group of mates just settled, and you know we all got decent jobs and built a life, if you like.
Now you're actually back here in Liverpool, hence why I've come to the other side of the world to catch up. But moving back to Liverpool, what prompted that after 9 good years in Australia?
Yeah, so a sad story actually. So in Australia, I had my business and all things like that. Everyone was going really well. We were kind of thinking about setting up a future there, setting up a life there. And my mum was diagnosed with cancer. So yeah, it was just your life just changes. So basically, I was I'd set up my own company doing form work. That was going unbelievably well. You couldn't even write it. For me anyway, I was just blown away by how it was going. Life was just exactly where I needed it to be. Then I got the news. So you couldn't write this as well. So I got the news, and the week after we landed, you know, I went to 2 meetings, and both of them were kind of the biggest meetings of the business and my career so far. Both meetings went extremely well. With big infrastructure, big building infrastructure companies in Sydney and New South Wales. So I moved home, not straight away, but I come home, you know, hearing the news. I think come home around Christmas. I was home for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And then one of these projects materialised and come in. And with the cancer, it's like you've got to wait for the treatments. Certain treatments might work, they might not, so you don't know. So it was kind of, it didn't make sense for me to move home imminently. So the plan was, okay, I'll wait and see how these treatments go, because I've got so much going on in Oz. I mean, you can only imagine like building a life over 9 years, mate, and building a company and stuff like that. So personal, so big. So it was one of them where I was, okay, I'll go back to Australia. I'll play this contract out, see how my mum gets on. But if I get bad news, then I'm coming home and I'm going to be there for my family. So that's essentially what happened. So it went so far, and then the treatments didn't work. Yeah. So it's quite hard for me to speak about it.
I understand, man. It's a big roller coaster for you, both from packing up life here, going to the other side of the world, building a successful business, building time in Australia, exploring most of Australia. You probably explored more of Australia than many Aussies have.
I loved it, mate. I lived for it, camping, 4-wheel drive, and I just love that culture there. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Now, 9 years in Australia, and then you decide, okay, well, I'm going to get into investing.
Yeah.
Now, when you're investing new to Australia, how was that feeling like for you, and what made you say, I want to consider professional help?
Well, I'd done a fair bit of research on property. I've always been interested in property. And I think for us here in the UK, it's very much drilled into us. Not so much for investment purposes, but to get your own home. So kind of property was on my radar from then. But yeah, so essentially I was looking for a place to live for me and my partner. We were thinking about the Blue Mountains, because obviously affordability in Sydney is so tough. But I like rural areas anyway, and I was kind of like, okay, that's an option. when that kind of struck with my mum, I kind of thought, well, my priorities have completely changed here. So I've gone now from looking for, maybe a home to now looking for like an investment. So I was kind of aware that, my financial position was about to change. And probably for a good couple of years before I'm going to be eligible to kind of get things rolling. So I just decided, I'm going to invest in here in Australia. And, getting a buyer's agent just made sense to me. For that reason, for investment purposes, it just seemed a logical thing to do.
Is that common back home in the UK? Do people like get help for this stuff, or they try to, go at it all alone? Do they get professionals? I mean, because I see it quite commonly with, folks in the UK is that they don't do it a lot themselves. They try to get professional help in many aspects of life, right?
Yeah.
Whether like it's the person with a PT at the gym, or whether that's the chef when you're going out for takeaway food rather than trying to make everything at home. It's something I find just in my conversations here more common, like outsourcing, professional support. Did you see that amongst friends, or not as much of a thing?
Not really, no. I didn't know about buyer's agents, to be honest. I bought a few property books, and then in turn, they were actually buyer's agents books.
Interesting.
But one kind of comment stood out to me, which was like, if you're lucky, your parents may have bought one property or two, or someone you're close to. And normally it's, many years apart. So you're about to make the biggest purchase of your life. Why wouldn't you go seek advice from people who buy hundreds, if not thousands of houses or properties on a daily basis? It's such a big purchase. So that kind of stuck with me, and I thought, it makes sense.
Now, when this all was going on in terms of the purchase of your first investment property in Australia, were you here at the time, back in Liverpool during that time? Were you kind of in transit between the two?
It crossed over. It crossed over. So, and that's something like I really appreciate how InvestorKit worked with me on that. I was probably quite unique. So I was saying to them, look, I might have to go like very soon for the foreseeable future. So they had to move really quick, and we needed to trust each other basically. So they were brilliant. They just sent me properties straight away. Started looking at them. We made a decision. And then, during, it hadn't settled until I was home, but they just worked with us on that as well.
Now, when it comes to living overseas and buying back home in Australia, we see, many think about currencies, whether you invest here or whether you continue to invest in Australia, because, whilst your life's back here again, you still got that ability to invest back home further again and again.
Yeah.
Where does that leave you in that scenario? Do you feel you're seeing yourself invest more and more back into Australia whilst you're living and earning here? Or do you find yourself, no, look, I just want to reinvest back here now, especially seeing that you have been able to do it remotely via distance, traveling?
Yeah. Well, like I had a video call with Kit not long ago, and we've got another one scheduled in January, I think. Yeah. I'm very much looking to invest in Australia again, especially having, the growth that I've seen in Townsville, and my initial property is going to allow me to do that. So yeah, I'm really keen to invest in Australia again.
And is there anything about Australia outside of the growth that you've achieved, which I'll touch on in a second, but more like, from my understanding, when Aussies move over to the UK, for some reason, even though they earn the dollars here, they make a good amount. They've got a good lifestyle in terms of the food, the cafe culture, the nightlife, and they're living here for a little bit now, and all of a sudden I think that, man, this might be the place for them for some time.
Yeah.
But then they still want to invest back home. Is there something about investing in the UK perhaps that isn't as exciting, or maybe doesn't, appeal as much to many people who do end up moving here?
Maybe. I mean, I think it's for me, it's more where it's exciting to invest in Australia because I maybe can see myself there in the future. So like I've spoke with Kit about maybe looking at areas in Melbourne, and like that for me is exciting, especially over investing in an area here. I think that like the two different beasts, like here properties are generally cash flow positive, but I don't think they're going to experience anywhere near the growth if you select the right properties in Australia. I think that's that's also appealing.
So it's that growth factor is a big X
I
factor.
think so.
Speaking of growth, we'd picked up your property for just over 580K last year. And the latest valuations have come back at near $740,000. So
Yeah.
you can see that growth that's being experienced almost 5 times the national average. That's life-changing dollars, isn't it, in terms of the growth?
Yeah, it is. And that's just going to, help me diversify my portfolio and hopefully break into them capital city markets as well.
Do you feel like living overseas, but then not knowing Australia as well, as in you're not born and brought up there, has made you feel like, I can invest anywhere in Australia because I'm not as emotionally connected to every single city? Because one thing many Aussies do wrong is they live in Sydney and don't want anything else but in and around Sydney.
Yeah.
And they miss out on what would have been, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital growth that you've seen.
Yeah.
That others sometimes go, I just missed it out completely. What made you feel so okay with going, all right, no matter where I'm in Australia or whether I'm in the UK, I'm just going to go and invest where the dollars and data make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that was just kind of my strategy, but I get what you're saying. If you're not looking for a home and you haven't got that connection to a place, because if you think about it, when people want to buy a house and they start to think, of building, a home, having a family, maybe all these personal factors just have to be taken into account, and they'll affect that decision. If you can make your decision based off the data and the numbers, that just opens you up to, all of this stuff, what I'm experiencing, and it means you can make an investment that really counts.
Okay, now talk to me about the process itself. You're overseas.
Yeah.
There's stuff going on in Australia. You're here in the UK. And I just want to go through your mind during that time in terms of what you're feeling in all the steps and all the things to do, the paperwork. It's your first time buying back in Australia as well, right?
Yeah.
How was that in terms of the challenges, but also how was that put at ease?
So there was a couple of challenges. So obviously, first time buying a house, all the paperwork, plus I had all that going on with mum. A company to run, so you can only imagine where my head was at. But the team worked with me. I was dealing with Nick and your team. So there was one conversation I recall. They sent me the first property, and us being from England and the UK, we just think by the beach, that's what you want. So that's what we live for. So it was by the beach, and I was like, right, great. I was like, but we missed out on that property, unfortunately. But straight away, it sent me another one. This is the property I ended up getting in Mount Louisa. And I was like, oh, Nick, look, this isn't by the beach. And he was
Which is funny, by the way, because the beaches here aren't all that special or anything,
no,
right?
No. Well, that's what I mean, though. But we think, oh, yeah, you want a gaff by the beach and this and that. So he went, look, mate, just don't worry about that. He said, I know how it feels, and I know it's easy to get that attachment to a place, but we've got the data, and that's not what we're seeing. So, trust me on this. So I had to kind of just trust them on it, and it was spot on, wasn't it? So, but yeah, the process was mad as well. Moving home through it, but we understand the time differences as well. So we knew, okay, we can get stuff done between 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your time kind of thing. And I knew, okay, when I get up, I need to get on the phone and sort that. So yeah, it was good.
Now, talk about some of the myths that you just broke then, right? Or busted. You had by the beach, all this sort of stuff. Was there any other thoughts or sayings back home that you're constantly told of or meant to do that you broke the rules on? You're like, no, I'm going to do it this way, the way InvestorKit's done it or said, that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, really, the whole process was just a bit, no one could really relate on from my side of things. So my dad was like, oh, look, are you sure about this? This doesn't sound like too good and this and that, and just trying to pick holes in everything, which is fair enough. He's my dad, so he's there for so. But yeah, I think the whole process was a bit like that. It was just new. There was an element of risk for me because I just wasn't, you're about to buy the biggest purchase of your life kind of thing. So, yeah, I suppose the whole experience for me was like that. But yeah, I'm glad I've done it now.
Now, another thing that people always compare the decisions with is what I've done with a pro helping me versus what I would have done myself. What would you have done yourself if you didn't have a team? Would you have even invested with everything going on? Would you have put it off for longer? Would you have maybe made a decision and threw a dart at the dartboard? What would it have been like if Paddy just did it on his own?
Do you know what? I'm not sure. I think one of the biggest challenges would have been if you're buying interstate. And this is when we speak about like buyer's agents. If you are going to go interstate, what does that involve? It involves leaving work for weeks at a time, paying for accommodation, going to view properties, and then not to mention, how do I try and get into a competitive market like Townsville on my own with no contacts? So, it's just a world of difference working with a team like InvestorKit, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Kit's name, your strategist at InvestorKit. Yeah. Many people often think that when they work with a buyer's agent, they're living abroad, it's a transaction. But you've mentioned him today. You mentioned him to me before in chats. Yeah. You communicated with him even before us linking up. And that was a year and a bit ago that you made the purchase. So there's a lot of contact afterwards. Yeah. What's that relationship like? Is it transactional or is it more relationship? And what's made it really a relationship for you?
I mean, it's both. I mean, the thing for me is I'm just so grateful that, so far, everything that you guys have said to me, the team, it's coming to fruition. So, I'm all in moving forward, and it was good to touch base with Kit and hear about the markets that we can potentially get into next year. And like I touched on before, that gets me excited. I've got friends still in Sydney. I've got friends in Melbourne. And with me being here, I don't know, if I'm going to stay here for forever or what's going to happen. So to be able to get a property in them places and for that to be an option is brilliant.
And has it been easier than you expected to manage as well whilst you've been overseas? Like, talk about the admin and like day-to-day of it. Has it been as daunting as you thought? Has it been like, it's pretty set and forget? You know
what? It's been all right. I've had a few little issues with the property. We had like a leak and I've had to get a bit of gardening done. Yeah. Unfortunately, my tenant got broken into as well. So I had to get kind of new locks and up the security.
A couple of maintenance
day-to-day things. She's got kids and stuff. So I wanted to feel safe and stuff. So she asked for a few extra things on the property. I was like, yeah, of course. Go on my way to sort that for her with the kids and stuff like that. But on the whole, mate, it's been really easy, very manageable. My agent now at I forget what the Townsville thing is called.
We'll call them property manager for now.
Yeah, property manager. Yeah, thanks. So she's been brilliant so far. So I'm really happy with her. Yeah. So yeah, it's been easy.
Well, I mean, imagine that though, like you're on the other side of the world, literally. Yeah. And you hear things like break-ins or maintenance and stuff.
Yeah.
How did you keep grounded to not look at that side of it? Because things like that happen in property. I've got a fair few myself with my wife and things like that pop up for sure. But you've not felt or considered that to be such a killer, but you've seen some really, really high growth. Has that offset that feeling because you've seen the results there?
Definitely.
Or are you always like not as emotional when it comes to assets and investments? What's been your thought there?
No, definitely. It's helped me. And I mean, seeing that growth has helped me throughout this year. Obviously, leaving everything that I know, leaving a successful company, a growing business, to have that on the sidelines that's enabled me to just have a bit of peace. That's sometimes it's been the only positive thing happening in my life at times this last year. So it's been big beyond words, to be honest with you.
Now, mate, there are other Aussies who move abroad, especially to the UK, and they're working here, they're living here. Do you have any words for them around the importance or the impact investing back home in Australia? It's funny, I'm calling Australia home for you now, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
investing back home in Australia while still living and working here?
I mean, I would just say it's very much doable. And with the right advice and the right help, it can very much work. And, if you do end up moving home or even if you're unsure, it's good to get these things started now. It might help you to be able to afford somewhere where you can see yourself in Australia in the future. That's certainly, my position. If I go back there, You know, if my portfolio's grown enough at that time, it might help me be able to walk into Australia and live exactly where I want to live and own a property, you know, where I want to raise a family and things like that.
Now, Paddy, when it comes to having success with one investment, we've obviously talked about that Mount Louisa Townsville purchase that has just crushed it. But when it comes to an investment, that's not a portfolio. People don't have a goal to just buy a property. They have a goal to achieve financial freedom. And usually property is a vehicle for that. How has InvestorKit helped you not look at it from a one-off transaction, but more from a portfolio strategy perspective?
Well, like I mentioned before, I sat down with Kit and, you know, we built a whole strategy. I was probably a very awkward client because all of my variables were about to change. But again, something else I appreciated about him and the service was that he was just willing to work with me, and he's like, right, we'll go with it. And he's touched base again recently and spoke about how we're now going to move forward with a new country in the mix, a new business and things like that. So, you know, how I think InvestorKit has helped me help the possibility of building a portfolio is the initial investment has been so good. And that's enabling me to access that equity to buy more property.
Yeah, so it's really just then not about each property as an isolation. It's like, can you turn that one property into a portfolio that actually achieves your goals,
Exactly.
right? Making your money work harder for you whilst you're living, working overseas. So, Paddy, thank you so much, mate, for today. I really appreciate, you know, your advocacy of InvestorKit, but also helping many other Aussies who do decide to move overseas about investing back home, or if they're, you know, Aussies that have been in Australia for a quick stint and then they're now heading back like your scenario, still can make investments back home. And it is something where, you know, you get that capital growth upside when you do it right. So thanks, Paddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Game over.